Substack. No. No. No.
Okay. There's the Substack.
Brandon and I are going to be both. Are going to be on both.
No.
I mean, maybe it's me.
With Wendy.
Yeah,
And
I don't.
I don't think it's me.
The poet Miranda at 1 or 2 p.m.
I don't
Eastern
think
Standard,
it's.
and me, Brandon, and Serge will be live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So
That is not a lie from me. Like someone talking about washing their hands.
No, that's not what I'm hearing. It keeps repeating about you, Brandon, and Sturge going live at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So is it like the note that I put in?
It's audio. I don't know. It's your voice though.
OMG, I didn't create that.
It's like it's an excerpt from a live.
Oh. It's not my phone. I don't know. Like, let me turn.
Well, whatever you did, it stopped. But I also can't hear your mic.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't hear you at all.
Now can you hear me?
Yes, but I hear it again.
But I hear it too. Okay.
I can't hear you now.
Okay.
No, we aren't live on Substack, by the way.
Yeah, we are. We'll just go right into it. So today on the show, hi, welcome everybody to the Deep Exhale with Wendy and Miranda and Onyx and Sarah. And so just the short read for today is Trump doesn't give a shit.
Terrible echo.
Here, okay. Is it me?
You know, it's kind of
there.
strange. I don't know how
Do y'all still hear? Can you hear me?
I hear you, but I still hear the.
OMG. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna shut down all. I'm gonna shut down all Substacks real quick and see if that'll help.
Do we need to relaunch?
No, I relaunched before we came on, but I'm shutting down anything that has Substack right now to see if that'll help.
Yeah, because I've muted all of the tabs that I think could be the problem.
Okay.
And so
I hear myself too, and I don't like that. Deep exhale.
Hi, Craig, by the way. Hi, Eileen, by the way.
Hey, Eileen. Like, I can't see you, but that's cool. Substack.com. Okay, here we go. Substack. I still hear myself. Substack. Substack.
I can hear yourself too.
Yeah, this is really strange. I don't know where it's open because I've closed everything that has Substack open with the exception of this. With the exception of this, and I just heard myself. Yay!
Good thing.
I just I don't understand. I'm gonna pop off and I'll pop back out. I'll come back on. Oh wait, I think I found it. Hold on, I think I found it. Which is really strange because I don't know why it would just continue to the chat there. No, did that stop it?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going off. I'll come back on.
All right, we'll go into it. Okay, there we go. Can't hear it now, though, right?
No.
Right. Yeah, it's gone now. Okay. So today we're still at war with we're still at war with Iran. Donald Trump has leaked the CIA says that Mojtaba al-Khamenei is gay. So he's still fomenting that lie. In every interview that's happened with Donald Trump since Friday, he says he doesn't care about an Iranian war now. All he cares about is them building his ballroom and when are they going to build his solid gold statue or whatever. Which I don't even know. I don't even fucking know anymore. But then here's the other thing, and this was a big takeaway from the weekend. So the current president of the Republicans of America is a guy named Kai Skemmerer, and he has come out and said that gay men invade gyms to infect people with AIDS. And that gay men are weaponizing AIDS against straight people. I want to understand that maybe Kai Skemmerer does not understand how HIV is transmitted. Maybe.
Or he understands that he's just trying to fearmonger people, which is more likely.
That does seem true.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, that does seem true. So I went into that. So drawing from Wojnarych's grief and Gentili's survival and Sontag's analysis of authoritarianism, today's topic is we explore how we as queer people navigate systemic indifference and deal with ongoing threats. And those reflections aren't about fixing pain, but witnessing with compassion. So in each case, I try to pair historical context with therapeutic inquiry, which is the same thing that we do on every live session. And I encourage you to process whatever it is that you feel, anger, safety, and recognize patterns without succumbing to despair, because the purpose of these live sessions is to not encourage despair. If you carry generational trauma, or if you face political hostility, the purpose of this space is to honor the fact that you're resilient, and to honor your lived experience, as much as mine, yours as much as mine, as much as anyone else's. And so I'm trying to sort of provide grounding to people, especially you all, while we go through this process, and try to connect enduring strength that is inherent in our survival as a community. So today's first question is David Wojnarycz. Do you know who that is? Do I need to give a biography of who he is?
I don't know who that is.
He's a very famous gay artist. And he was HIV positive. He died in 92 from AIDS-related complexities. And the thing that he said was this: my rage is really about the fact that when I was told that I had contracted the virus, it didn't take me long to realize that what I had actually contracted was a diseased society as well. And what that rage tells us, and it names something in the queer community that we still feel. The betrayal of institutions that should have cared for us don't. And this anger is valid. It's not pathology. It's an accurate perception of our own internalized reflective feelings. Oh, and we have a Brandon now. Yay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I actually wrote this. Today's show I wrote specifically for you, Brandon.
What?
Yes.
Aren't we?
So,
We're
you know
early,
who-
aren't we?
Huh?
So now all the pressure's on
No.
you, Brandon.
Now the pressure's all on Brandon. David Wozniewicz. Do you know who that is?
Who?
David Wozniewicz.
I guess not.
Okay. He's a fairly well-known gay visual artist from the 80s.
Oh.
And I'm going to reread his quote. He contracted HIV in 86 or 87. And he died from AIDS-related complications in 92. But the quote, which is, again, we're talking about survival, is my rage is really about the fact that when I was told that I had contracted the virus, it didn't take me long for me to realize that I'd contracted a diseased society as well. And he said that in 89. And so what I was saying was Wozniewicz's rage names something in the community that we all feel, and that's the betrayal of institutions that are supposed to take care of us. Because institutions exist to provide care. And the anger not to have that care is valid. Processing it means acknowledging that your pain isn't about your illness or your orientation or your gender or anything else. It's about societal indifference. And so then you ask yourself, where do I still feel abandoned by systems that are meant to help me? I honestly feel abandoned by the medical profession as a whole, because outside of my general practitioner who affirms my gender, I get sirred and duded and manned, and I get misgendered constantly if I have to go outside of that spectrum. And then I ask myself, what would healing look like if I stopped expecting those systems to change? Well, no, that healing would be to not associate in those systems. The problem is, at my age, I don't have that choice. I don't have that luxury anymore. Because I think the goal isn't to forgive what was never forgivable, but to reclaim what energy was spent on waiting for validation that I knew would never come. When I go to a heart specialist and the heart specialist doesn't see me as a woman, nor recognizes me as that fact, that's a validation that I would want, but I would never expect to get. And so today's therapeutic question then becomes, how do you process anger towards systems that fail to protect you? How do you deal with it? I'll tell you how I deal with it. I write about it. I wrote a bar story today over compartmentalizing anger at the medical profession, targeting a very specific case that I have been vocal about. And it is a case of a person who I will not name, who is very unhealthy and refuses to get the help they need, inlaid into a system that refuses to help this person anyway. And so, yeah, I mean, I went to a specialist this week with Kira, my partner, because they were going to a specialist, and I witnessed firsthand, again, the fact that people weren't going to gender her correctly. She got misgendered a handful of times. It was not good. I didn't like it. And, but I can't expect the system to change to accommodate her or me or Miranda or Onyx from a gendering perspective. So what do? I just internalize that anger, and then I just get more angry about it. Sarah?
The first thing that comes to mind is a couple of neighbors that we used to have when my sister and I were kids. The house that was across the street was a rental, so there was a lot of people that we've seen live there over the years. Some of them were friends of ours, some of them we didn't know. But there was a gay couple that moved in one time, and my sister became really good friends with these two guys. And then after several years was very heartbroken when the one guy had to go to the hospital because of some kind of accident, and because he was HIV positive, they didn't give him the full spectrum of care that they should have, and he didn't make it. And that was the first time that our household had been impacted by the way the system treats people who have AIDS.
Which is completely horrible. It's just completely horrible. I can't imagine it. Brandon, how do you deal with it?
I mean, fortunately, I really haven't had firsthand experience with being, I don't know, excluded or targeted, discriminated against at least in the healthcare field, and I haven't witnessed it firsthand. So, oh, sorry, you're muted.
Do you have an affirming medical professional? Or is your medical professional even aware of your orientation?
Well, I just changed. I'm on Medicaid now because, I'm not earning enough to have a different kind of insurance. Anyway, I'm on Medicaid, so they signed me a primary physician, whatever, because it has to be someone in network, and I haven't even seen that person yet, so I don't even know. I very rarely go to the doctor. I went a couple of years ago, and then before that, well, that was because I had shingles. I know it's early.
I was just say, are you old enough for shingles?
Brandon, it's too early for you to have shingles.
It was a very mild case. I mean, I've heard about other people that had it and all the pain and everything like that, but I had it pretty mild, and I went and they gave me steroids. I went to the urgent care, so I didn't even see a primary physician. I went to one of those urgent care thing. Before that, it was 2020. When I had COVID, I went to an urgent care. And I just don't hardly ever go. I never need to. So
Gosh.
I've been thinking about, I probably need to go. I'm not on PrEP, and if I'm going to be engaging in sex parties or anything like that, I thought I probably should get on that.
That escalated quickly.
So my doctor down here in Atlanta, and of course I live in a red state, but my doctor's like, are you sexually active? Well, yes. Okay, do you need to go on PrEP? And I'm like, no, because I'm not engaging in sexual activity with multiple male individuals. And sex for me is an entirely different experience to begin with. anyway, but then she looked at me. She's like, "Have you had your Hep A, B, and C immunizations yet?" And I was like, no. She's like, "Oh, well, we're going to do 2 of those today. And then the next time you come in, we're going to do the 3rd one." And I was like, I'm not fucking around with Pamela Anderson. Why am I worried about Hep C? And so, but then, yes, my doctor is very vocal about my grade of sexual activity because, one day I came into the doctor and I had, I had to do a full body and I disrobed, and she was like, "There are red marks all over your posterior. Where did these come from?" And I had to look at her and go, "Oh, right, that. Oh, okay." And I literally, you laugh about this. All I said to her was, "I enjoy impact play." And the minute that I said that, she immediately looked at me and went, "Oh, okay. Self-inflicted or person-inflicted?" And I looked at her and went, "Person-inflicted?" And she said, "Did you have a good time?"
That's the
Well,
important
yes, actually, I did.
That is definitely the important thing.
Well, no, the funny thing was, like, she was like, "Did you have a good time?" "Yes, I had a pretty good time." "Well, what would have made it better?" And then I thought for a minute and I went, maybe if the person that I was with had not used the butterfly clamps on my nipples and used the endurance clamps on my nipples, I would have enjoyed that a little bit better. But otherwise, why are we having a sexual discussion in the doctor's office?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Is the Substack chat going crazy yet?
15 people. No.
Okay. So, Miranda, how do you deal with that anger?
Oh, well, a few months ago, I took Moon to urgent care because of migraines. And they ended up having to give her a Toradol shot to get it under control. But even though the paperwork was all like, "What's your preferred name? What are your pronouns?" They just completely ignored that. Kept referring to him by his dead name. And outside of the exam room, several of the medical staff kept having conversations about us. So I wanted to go crazy, but my kid was in a lot of pain, and so I just focused on that and on getting him the help that he needed, and then getting out of there. And now I know that that's not a safe place for us to get care, unfortunately.
I think that's really that's a horrible part because they know you need them, and they can treat you however they feel like they want to, and especially if it's like an emergent kind of situation, you're not going to leave and travel somewhere else when you need something right away.
Well, I mean,
Right.
they can deny you care outright.
Of
I mean,
course.
you could have care completely and abjectly denied.
Yeah. Because it's against their religion.
Well, back in the 80s, though, I mean, there was legitimate fear. I remember going through an emergency procedures examination somewhere, because I was working in a warehouse, and literally in the instruction they literally said, if someone's bleeding to death, don't touch them until you've put latex or nitrile gloves on. And I literally raised my hand and said, why is that a problem? Well, if you have cuts on your hand and they have AIDS, you will die. And I literally was like, okay. You know, the medical profession in the 80s was not kind to gay people in that variety. And so to hear that resurgence come back from this kid who is the president of the Republicans, University Republicans of America, to hear him say, you missed this, but so the head of that organization is a guy named Kai Skemmer or Brandon. And he's literally going around telling people that gay men are invading gyms to infect straight people with HIV and give them AIDS.
Like all gay people are doing this? Or?
Just all gay men are doing this, yes.
Oh. So first he's assuming that all gay men have AIDS, I guess, or HIV.
Yes, that is exactly what he is assuming. And so that's just goes back to fear mongering from that earlier time when it was like, you know, there were gay people back in the early 80s that were like, I have HIV, full-blown AIDS, I'm going to spit on you unless you put a bunch of money into my bag and I'm robbing your bank because I'm threatening to spit on you and infect you with AIDS. That actually happened. That was a thing because people didn't get it, especially certain faithful individuals. Miranda, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry that you and Moon had to go through that. That hurts. You were saying?
Oh, that kind of propaganda about gay men spreading AIDS in the gym is just going to set up gay panic defense for right-wing people to attack gay men.
Well, I mean, society is
going to give me AIDS.
Yeah, society as a whole has a knee-jerk reaction. Gay panic in the 80s, the 70s and the 80s. Miranda, I know you'll know what I'm talking about. Satanic panic. You listen to Ozzy Osbourne, you're going to worship the devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Play the records backwards, right?
So how do you deal with that anger, Onyx? Or do you even try to deal with it?
Well, so today is World Bipolar Day. So yay, I have bipolar disorder, and that is where I'm going to focus my issue. It is scary as a Black trans person to even think about having to be institutionalized, to have to go to a psychiatric hospital, to the Grippy Socks Motel, as I call it. You know, I've been once. I had not transitioned then, but I was starting to. And so in group settings, I would talk about it, but it was not safe. And I did not feel safe. I know that I would be misgendered. I know that I would be dead named. I know that the general comfort and my general safety might be affected. So, you know, it makes me scared and it downplays my symptoms. It makes me downplay my symptoms, so that I don't get thrown into the Grippy Socks Motel. It's you know, and then I'm fearful. Like I don't have a problem because I don't know if you know of Vita Care, Wendy. But that's where I go for my hormones, and I get 6 months. Every 6 months, I get HIV and STD testing, STI testing. You know, just to be sure. And Yeah, I don't, doctors have always misgendered me because I go to pretty much the same doctors that I've been going to since before transition. So they knew me before transition, and several of them are having a hard time using my name and having a hard time not misgendering or dead naming me. Um, as
I,
far as, go ahead.
it's very interesting you bring that up because I have a funny story about this. So, I was an Aaron patient before I transitioned.
Right, right, okay.
And so here's the funny story about Aaron. Now, if you live in Atlanta, there's a doctor named Aaron. Everett is her last name, and she's like the one doctor like every trans woman in Atlanta wants to be a patient of. And so I was an Aaron patient before I ever transitioned. Now, at the time, I was dating a trans woman, and so um, you know, I mean, yay or whatever, right? And every time I went to that office, the main the doctor that opened North Druid Hills Care was a gay doctor. Every time I would go in there, he'd check me out, and then he'd be like, "Hey, if you want to come over to my house one night, I'll let you ride." And I'm like, "No, you're." So I find so at Avita Care. So Avita Care, for those that don't know, here in Atlanta, is they have the rural FCDM or whatever classification, which means they're federally funded. So if the state ever bans gender affirming care, Avita Care can continue to provide that care because of their federal classification, which for whatever reason is a classification that Trump or any of those other idiots hasn't figured out exists because they haven't taken it away yet. But I've been going to Avita Care since they opened, and so I find it shocking if there's anybody in that office that misgenders anybody. So,
Oh no, not in Avita Care.
right.
Yeah, Avita Care has been straight. Like they've been good. My person is Jewel Sawyers, and
Oh
she's
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, and actually they. I don't know if they go by they them or she they. Either way, I'm gonna say they, and they're badass. They have been straight with me. They've helped me. They may be leaving, and they told me where they're going as a just in case anything happens. Follow me here. Um, but I'm talking more along the lines of my Crohn's disease doctors. My specialists, bipolar
Right.
doctors. So, yeah, so those are the ones who kind of attach themselves to the older version they think of me. And I just I I correct them all the time, but it's to no avail. You just correct, 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 and it finally gets to the point where you're just like, you know what? I'm gonna let someone else correct. So that's Egg, and then Egg comes in, and she's like, you know what, Doc, you've got to stop doing this, and she will stop the conversation and be like, you've got to stop doing this. So I've got a little protector in Egg, but yeah.
Well, I think that's a great resource to have. I think there's a codification for how much strength that we take in a situation versus what we do to be safe. Because we exist in hostile environments all the fucking time. The Gentili quote was, "Do what you can to achieve whatever level of empowerment you can get, but also be safe." And in Gentili's case, she recognizes that survival requires strategy, not just courage. As a trans woman, I deal with navigating ID challenges, healthcare barriers, and community violence. Be safe isn't a caution. It's a tactical necessity. therapeutic work involves mapping what your safety looks like, which spaces feel secure. For me, well, for the most part, Friends on Ponds is, I consider, a safe space. However, I had a recent visitation to Friends on Ponds where I did not feel safe. Because while at Friends on Ponds, a very drunk, very high individual approached me, grabbed my boobs, and then started humping on me, which was decidedly problematic.
Very.
Yes, very problematic. But I, so what space feels secure versus who can you trust? What boundaries protect the energy you have? Empowerment without safety gets people killed.
Right.
It literally will put you into a position where you can get killed. There's that whole quote from Brokeback Mountain, like, if this thing takes a hold of us at the wrong time and the wrong place, then we're dead. That's true, because it's the same, rationale here. The balance looks like showing up where you can, protect yourself when you have to, build mutual aid networks, and distribute at risk. Then ask yourself, what does safety look like for me right now? And what power can I give myself without compromising the safety that I have? So that's the question. How do you balance giving yourself strength versus safety in hostile environments? Now, for me personally, I walk into a hostile environment 3 days a week. I get on public transit to go to work. Oh, and it's hostile.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean for me? There have been a handful of occasions. In 4-inch stilettos, I sat on the train minding my own fucking business, and somebody got in my face, and then I stood up and looked down and said, "Did you say something?" Because in 4-inch stilettos, I'm literally 7 feet tall. Just about. And so, that sort of offsets that. But not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has that intimidation power. So what do I do to mitigate that when that doesn't work? I ride the train with people that I trust. I have a coworker who lives in Lake Claire, which is basically the Edgewood neighborhood of Atlanta, and I ride the train with her every day in the afternoon. And so in the afternoon, I never get bothered because she and I are on the train gabbing back and forth at each other, talking about whatever. And people don't fuck with me. So while continuing to represent as a woman in a public space, what do I do to leverage my safety? I pair up with somebody that I can trust in that environment. And that's what I do to stay safe. Onyx, what do you do?
Well, I have egg. And it's just that simple. I have egg. She is my protector and always has been. Once she learned the microaggressions that go into being Black and to being trans, once she saw those for herself, because she had never been in an interracial relationship. So this is, I think, an important thing. If you've never been in an interracial relationship, then you don't really know, and with a Black person, then you don't know the microaggressions that are thrown our way every day, consistently throughout the day, and in any interaction. So, she got to see firsthand exactly what those were and how they went down. So when she began to recognize them, I remember one day where she just broke down in tears. She said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know how, you handled this. Your life must be so hard." I'm like, "Well, I've been doing this all my life. So, I understand how you would feel because, having all this dumped on you as someone who's white never had to question any of this. I understand how it kind of opens your eyes a bit." So ever since then, she has been the protector, I don't have to be the person, even though I can be at times, but I don't have to be the person that yells. I don't have to be the person that scares someone down. I don't have to be the person that has a sharp word for anybody. Not anymore. I used to have to do that. Now it's Egg who does that. And she does that because she understands that in my position, if I were to do that, I may get in more trouble. But her as a white queer woman will not get in that kind of trouble. So,
Yeah, I think that's valid. Certainly so. Miranda?
I have my wife too.
I've met her wife in real life, by the way. That's not a person I ever want to upset.
Yeah, but like our anniversary was last week, so the previous weekend we went on a little getaway to a hot springs resort, and it was tricky because on paper they're accepting and affirming place, and we had no problems with the staff. They were all wonderful the entire time, but you can't control who else is going to be staying there, or a patron or whatever. So the entire time, her guard was up because of people staring at me, people having little, their little side conversations, and that were clearly about me. So like, she's there to, I mean, she'll always protect me, but it's hard for her that she couldn't just relax and enjoy the time that we were having together because of these other people. And there were even a couple instances where someone was holding their phone in such a way as to make us think that they could have been surreptitiously taking pictures. So, yeah.
Brandon?
I mean, I'll kind of have to echo everybody else. There's safety in numbers, and usually a bully will have his backup. There will be people with them. They're not brave enough to just say something and do something on their own. Sometimes, but most of the time, they're going to have people around them. So I think that's what we need to do too, when possible.
Yeah, there's a certain credibility and strength in numbers. I mean, that's why here in Atlanta, when the Pride Parade happens, I don't fucking get it. I literally don't fucking get it. But like, there's 25,000, 45,000 pro queer people at the Atlanta Pride Parade in October, sitting on Peachtree, going up to Piedmont and 10th to go to Piedmont Park. And yet, in that sea of people who are all either queer allies or queer friendly or themselves queer or trans or gay or ace or bi or whatever, there are like these 5 or 6 people who hold up their evangelical signs. How the fuck does that person even expect to have an impact? And how does that person not expect in a sea of people to get a couple of times? Because
they're just there to get rejected so they can feed their persecution complex.
Right. Oh no, I completely agree. But In 2024's Pride, I had pictures. You know, I went up to one of those people and I was like, that sign's wrong, and here's why. And I started to spout off a bunch of Hebrew, and the guy looked at me like I was crazy, and he was like, "How did you know that?" or whatever. And then you're an abomination. And before I could say anything else, like 5 bear daddies walked up behind me and got really close and looked at the guy and said, "Do you have a problem?" And he got very quiet and said, "I'm going to leave now."
Right.
"I'm going to leave right now. Please have a nice day. Remember, violence against people is against God."
Right.
Oh. Sarah?
I had more issues with my safety when I was younger. Whether it was an actual threat to my physical safety, I don't know. As a result, I built an outward aesthetic that made people afraid of me.
Woo. Yeah. Hmm.
I'm sure your person, whoever the fuck it is, loves that.
Well, I've been working a lot over the past few years to try to break a lot of that down because I don't need it anymore. But, I mean...
Wait, well, hold on. You actually found somebody to be vulnerable around?
Wow.
Wow. That's just a lot, Sarah. I'm enjoying this a little too much.
You really can't win, even when you don't say anything. You're saying something, apparently.
Oh, I know.
Well, you dropped something, and then I think it was like you were talking, and then you kind of caught yourself, and you were like, "Whoa," like you had given.
I wasn't even
to-
saying anything about
It just-
now. It was since
No,
my dad died, I've been working to break that down.
That's what it sounded like. It sounded deep, though, and it was like,
Sarah, you have a very introspective way of communicating, very deeply and emotionally.
right.
And it just, that's one of the reasons why, in the bar stories, I always write you as this stoic, introspective person, because in these sessions, that's exactly what the fuck you are. I ask you a question, you're like, huh. And then there's that 30-second to minute before you say something. How is that not classic stoicism? I mean, Miranda, tell me I'm wrong.
Do I?
Oh my God. You know what?
She just wants you to agree with her.
I just want you to agree with me.
That's kind of funny because when I met Sarah, that's the first thing I said after talking to her for a couple of hours, that she's one of the sophists or stoics. She gives that vibe. They've got a really philosophical way about them.
I mean, I imagine you, Sarah, in an Eastern European hash bar that's covered with smoke at a table with a bunch of people who are really fucking high and going, you know what? This. And then the whole table going, yeah.
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 It's an opium den. Yeah, an opium den.
You'll never find me in an opium den.
What? You don't like opium? I know we're getting
I've
off
never
topic.
tried it, and I have no intention of it.
Oh,
Okay.
It smells so good. Yeah.
It's riding the dragon is an experience. So in line with the idea of about you know, talking about safety, we have to talk about authoritarian issues because we're living in an authoritarian. Look, 60 million people went out on the street over the weekend to protest no kings. I mean, do you think that means we don't live in an authoritarian regime? I mean, our president is currently telling people he doesn't care about Iran and he just wants them to hurry up and finish his ballroom and his giant gold statue of himself.
Yeah, that's not somebody who planned this.
So Sontag was the one who said, authoritarian political ideologies have a vested interest in promoting fear, a sense of the imminence of takeover by aliens or by a threat or by anyone else, and real diseases are useful material. And so what that tells us is Sontag's view helps us see that all of the current attacks on queer people and queer rights aren't new. They're just recycled tactics. Back in 2010, gay marriage was going to be the thing that was going to destroy the fabric of society. And then it happened, and then they were like, well, SCOTUS says it's law, now we can't do anything about it. And so recognizing that patterns prevents gaslighting yourself into thinking this time is bigger, because it isn't. Back in the 50s and 60s, not to trigger you in any way by saying this, Onyx, Black people. Interracial marriage was the downfall of human society. As a matter of fact, and I want to say this, before 1973 or 4, interracial marriage was completely illegal in almost every state in the U.S. Completely illegal. If you were a Black person and you married a white person and you had a child with that person, you were arrested for doing that.
As a matter of fact, that is true. Loving versus Virginia, the Loving case, both of them were arrested and put in jail in 1957. And I think the case went through in 1963, or I don't know when it was. I might be wrong on the dates. But yeah, they were in jail first because they were an interracial couple who were married.
It's just manufactured outrage over and over. And so when that went out, it was something else. When that went out, it was gay people. When that went out, it was trans people. I've said this before, and it won't end well if my future prediction happens, but when trans people fall out of fashion as the target and they decide to go after the furry community, I want to watch that shit play. I want to watch that shit play out. Yeah, like if they go after the furry community and thought that's the outrage, okay, let me get my popcorn and let me just buy a year's worth of Diet Coke so I can sit in front of the TV and watch this shit because it's not going to end well.
Then they'll start warning of rabies.
Right. Can't be with a furry. They might give you rabies and that can kill you.
That's going to be the tagline for real.
Well, that was like when the Republicans tried to foment the idea that there were kids using litter boxes in the school bathrooms or whatever. That was the thing. I was like, okay, that means when they stop attacking trans people, they're going to start going after furries next. That's what's going to happen. But here's the thing. However it is, recognition should not become rumination. Therapeutically, naming the pattern without catastrophizing it, identifying what's within your control, and then connecting to community resistance. Community resistance is entirely the reason all 5 of us are here sitting in front of whatever device we own and operate to have this very discussion. Despair is understandable, but it's not the only response. When you see the playbook played over and over again, blaming whatever marginalization they want to attack for systemic failure, I literally can look at that and say, I recognize that. I'm not going to internalize it. I'm just going to act where I can. That transforms evidence into agency rather than paralysis or the inability to function. And so that begs us to ask, how do you recognize patterns of authoritarianism without becoming paralyzed by them? I watch the news and I look at shithead say, I'm not worried about Iran because I just want them to build my ballroom and my giant golden statue. Which, by the way, I want to say this. Hefford White, who is a PhD of political science out of Harvard, published a scathing op-ed that it was in, I think, yesterday's digest. If not, it was the day before's, but anyway, or Friday's. But in the op-ed, he literally said, Trump's reign is over. And there's a reason for this. The Trump presidency is done. So there's, the deportation issue, there's the rising gas prices, there's the rising grocery prices, there's now the Iranian war, there's the Epstein files, and those are all things that he's doing one layer on top of another to distract everybody. The problem is nobody's being distracted. Nobody's being distracted. So his approval ratings are tanking. 39 now Republican senators and House members are all retiring and not seeking re-election in the midterms because they know they're going to lose. So, fine. And there's all this fear about, Tom Homan's like, we'll have ICE agents show up at polling places. Well, one, that won't fly because it violates too many state constitutions, and that'll turn into a states' rights issue, and they'll escalate that all the way up to SCOTUS, and SCOTUS will say, no, you can't fuck with states' rights. You have to leave that alone. You can't have people influencing voting locations by being at the front door. They have to be 100 feet away. People have tried to defeat that law hundreds of times over, and it's never gone well for when they try to do it. And I think like the one or two times that they actually ended up going all the way up to SCOTUS, SCOTUS didn't even entertain the idea. They said, lower court, listen to the lower court, fuck you. So, right, we're going into the midterms. That's a done deal. And Trump can't continue to distract people because distraction is failing. So if he gets 25th, which is all entirely likely at this point, especially if things go the way. I mean, look, fucking the district that Trump's Mar-a-Lago is in went blue. That's the first time that's happened in 70 years at the state level. The fuck does that say?
Isn't he trying to federalize voting though?
Yes, he is. That's what I heard too.
Okay, if he tried to federalize voting, if he tried to federalize the voting process. Nope, that's a states' rights issue because the Constitution states unequivocally that voting, the process of voting, how voting happens, and when it happens is entirely a states' rights issue. He'd
Does
have
he
to
care, though?
Huh?
Does he care?
No, he doesn't. But here's the problem. What it would take for that to happen is a state convention, which means it would have to 2/3 in both House and Senate, and he doesn't have it. Congress would have to amend the Constitution to allow the federal government to take control of the voting process. So, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, I know that seems like we're dealing with crazy, and so because we're dealing with crazy isn't going to try to find a way to do that. But in all honesty, the likelihood that that's going to happen, no. It's not. It won't. It's not in any way that ends pretty, and not in any way that benefits Orange shits his pants. Which at this point, does he even really care? Because all he cares about is his goddamn golden statue and his giant ballroom. So, do you recognize patterns of authoritarianism, Brandon? And aren't bothered by them?
Yeah.
I mean, when you read the news, do you actually feel hopeless and despair? Please say no.
No. It's not going to last forever.
Right.
But, I mean, you just have to endure while it is happening.
Right.
But, yeah, you just have to keep telling yourself there is an end to this. It will end at some point.
Right. I mean, do we know what that end looks like? I don't know, but one of my favorite signs from the weekend is, I hope Melania brings a date to his funeral. That one tickled me. Sarah? You're talking into mute. That's how stoic you are.
I was saying that the news is disgusting, and yeah, if I let myself dwell on it too much, it does cause despair, but I don't let myself dwell on it too much. There's far too much other stuff going on.
Brandon, knock it off.
Brandon's muted.
Brandon, stop fucking with the emojis.
No, I didn't do that one.
It's really loud.
Sorry, that was mine.
Okay. It's not me. Look, I'm just playing with this little tin thing or whatever in my hands, okay? It's not me.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying, Sarah?
I was going to say that I choose to focus more on the things that are more immediately in my control. Like, I do acknowledge the things that are going on nationally, state level, and because, I mean, overall, they do have an impact, whether it be an immediate impact or not. But if I let myself focus on those, it's not going to be, that's not going to put me on a very good road. So, just try to
I think you need to get on the road that sends you to someone's house. I'm never going to not give you shit about that. You just need to accept that now. Miranda?
Yes.
How
Don't
do
know
you
if I have any feedback.
I want to ask you a question, because I know this is an issue in your relative community. Do you see localized patterns of authoritarianism that happen? And are you bothered by them? Because there's one in particular I'm thinking about that happened while I was there, and I remember it happening.
But
That
what
was
example are you
that
thinking
was
of?
that was the Nazi symbol that was drawn on the through the main
on the
dragon.
window.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the window, they etched a Nazi symbol, and I thought we were in Denver, and so I was, Miranda and I were going around, and she was like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "Holy fuck!"
Yeah, and that was right across the street from the largest high school in town.
Yeah.
But there's shit like that. But it's there's a lot of organizing going on here all the time. lot of um, planning for if ICE tries to do a Minneapolis here. Um, we always have great turnouts for um, protest of the federal or state actions. Um, and, um, there's been some criticism on the internet where people just love to criticize about no kings and other things being performative protests and not actually useful. But really, um, if you go to one of those events here, you're going to be, um, you're going to see info booths for Denver communists and um, democratic socialists, and taking people who are on a certain level of like just now protesting authoritarianism to like what else can you do in the minutia that isn't, because there's a lot more to do than just protest, but protesting is a good thing.
Well, I pretty much, I mean, within the aspect of Denver itself, I mean, you travel an hour north and you have Cheyenne, and you travel an hour south and you have Colorado Springs. And the way I remember it, both of those locales are decidedly Trumpy.
Oh yeah, and like, Colorado Springs is where Focus on the Family is headquartered.
Fuckers.
So lots of Christian nationalism down there. Unfortunately, one of those groups has done a ballot petition to circumvent our state laws and get on the ballot a vote for banning trans girls from sports and banning gender affirming care for minors. So it's this like upcoming election season is going to be kind of a bellwether for our state and what the general populace, how they respond to all of the propaganda that's being pumped out. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think there's a confidence level. Onyx?
I'm going to come at it a different way. And once again, it's because I'm black and that informs everything. As far as the No Kings rallies around the United States, I know that there were black people, but there was a white woman who was being interviewed by a white Christian conservative. And he said, look around and, why does it look so homogenized? And this white lady said, black people have been upfront, especially black women have been upfront and doing the work for hundreds of years, well, not hundreds, many years, to keep the Democrats on top. Now it's time for the white middle class woman to come out and protest for black people, so that way black people don't get targeted immediately. The reason I didn't go to a No Kings rally is because I felt like I would have been the first one targeted. If anything went down, they would have gone for me. And while there is safety in numbers, there are not enough numbers to save me. So I look at it that way. In terms of news and so on and so forth, there's just so much to be inundated with. You get it from every single platform you're on. So, in some way, shape, or form, you're going to get hit with the news. The way I handle it is to not let it hit me 24/7. There are times where I just have to take a break from it. I know that it's going to be there tomorrow or the next day or the next day. I am not being blind and I am not hiding. I am simply resting. before I go ahead and start again.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think in closing, because we're getting right up on the hour, all of those voices, all of our voices, span time, but we all speak the same inevitable truth, that queer survival, our survival, requires grief and strategy. In Wojnaritz's case, it was a wound, and it was a wound that he was willing to name, and it was a wound that killed him. In Gentili's case, it was about armor and the ability to resist and withstand, all things that we need to do. And then in Sontag's case, Sontag provides the lens so that we can actually see what this is. So they remind us that rage and caution and pattern recognition are all forms of care, not just for ourselves, but for each other. I don't think that any of those things is a thing that we should mourn or take advantage of. We should just be aware of it. And I think that awareness helps. I don't know about you guys, but it certainly gets me through it. And I have a hard enough time as it is. Anybody have anything for a final thought?
Just my final closing. No trash. No transphobia, no racism, no ableism, no sexism, no homophobia, and then we'll do the other two: no Islamophobia, no xenophobia. Fuck Trump and fuck ICE.
Well, thank you, everybody that is watching. Thank you to all who have participated and come to visit us today. We'll be back on Friday per the usual activity. Go out and do good things, resist, thrive, survive, be compassionate to one another. Let's all love each other, because, that's the only way we get through it.